Alex Jones is having quite a bad week, if I don't say so myself. So let me give you the news story that just came out here. This is in the Huffington Post. Alex Jones just lost 2 Sandy Hook cases. A judge issued default judgments, a rarity in the legal world, against Jones and Infowars after the conspiracy theorist failed to produce discovery records. Interesting. So he didn't provide something to the court that he needed to provide to the court. Infowars host Alex Jones has lost 2 of several lawsuits filed against him by relatives of the Sandy Hook victims after he routinely failed to comply with requests to produce documents related to his involvement in spreading lies about the deadly shooting. Judge Maya Guerra Gamble on Monday issued her ruling for default judgments against Jones in 2 different cases, which means he and the conspiracy theory spewing outlet Infowars have been found liable for all damages, and a jury will now be convened to determine how much he will owe the plaintiffs. The new rulings became public Thursday. In the filings, Gamble eviscerated Jones and reasoned that default judgments should be ordered because an escalating series of judicial admonishments, monetary penalties, and non-dispositive sanctions have all been ineffective at deterring the abuse caused by Jones's unwillingness to turn over documents related to the cases, the Texas judge ruled. The ruling, which is often referred to in Texas as a death penalty sanction for a party unwilling to comply with court orders, is a rarity in the legal world. Jones, who is now on his 7th lawyer in these cases, had years to provide documentation requested by the court, including internal company emails. So, my reading of this, and of course I'm not a lawyer, but my reading of this is that he refused to comply with a standard court procedure, and because he didn't comply with it, because he didn't present evidence that he was legally obligated to present, they're now ruling against him as a result of that. Now, they say it's rare, but also it strikes me as, not unreasonable that if you're just not complying with the process and what the court has deemed appropriate, that there are going to be punishments for that. Now, understand something. From my reading of the situation, and again, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. If something comes out and changes this, of course, I'll correct the record. But from my reading of the articles on this, he's just going to be held liable monetarily. And so that means he's going to have to pay. He's already paid out some money, but now he's going to have to pay out probably millions of dollars as a result of this case. And of course, I don't know if it was defamation case or libel or slander or whatever, but the details are he, routinely called the Sandy Hook shooting a false flag operation, a conspiracy, a hoax, and then some of his acolytes, some of his followers harassed family members who had children die in that shooting. And that, by the way, this is all a matter of record. None of this stuff is, opinion. In fact, one of Jones' followers ended up, I think in 2017, getting found guilty and sentenced to time in prison because of how vicious the harassment was of these family members. Now, it is notoriously difficult in the United States to prove, guilt in the realm of speech, because we have the First Amendment, we have free speech, we have free expression. So anything that's defamation, libel, slander, you have to prove material damages in order to, win a defamation suit. And in the instance of the person who was being harassed, they were able to prove it. And so that person was found guilty. Now, then, of course, comes the question of, by extension, is Alex Jones guilty? He certainly laid the groundwork, which led to somebody doing that. But then, you get into the conversation of, remember when Bill O'Reilly called George Tiller, an abortion doctor, Tiller the baby killer, over and over and over, and then some crazy right-winger murdered George Tiller? Was Bill O'Reilly legally responsible for what, effectively somebody who's his fan did? And the answer was decisively, well, of course not, because people get influenced by all sorts of things, and ultimately, at the end of the day, you are responsible for your own actions. You have agency. You can't do this, levels removed and then take people down for that. Now, you could say, ethically, morally, in the realm of common sense, of course he bears some responsibility, because maybe these people wouldn't have come across these conspiracy theories if it wasn't for Jones, because he's a prominent conspiracy theorist. But in terms of, in the realm of the law, it was impossible to hold O'Reilly accountable. It was impossible to hold Jones accountable on that specific thing, and it's impossible for others to be held accountable in similar stories. But effectively what happened here is sort of like getting Al Capone on tax evasion, right? Al Capone, mafia boss, gangster, committed all these crimes, but they got him on tax evasion. Sort of what happened here with this case with Alex Jones, where they're like, okay, you're not presenting the evidence you have to present in this case. You're not responding to the monetary penalties and other sanctions. And so as a result of that, you're going downski, son. You're going downski. It's a default judgment against you. And so now he has to pay. So what's my overall takeaway from this? They got him on a technicality, and that technicality is legit. So I don't necessarily think the judge is wrong. If he's not presenting the thing he has to present, and they've waited and they've tried 1,000 different ways and he's not doing it, well, what else are they supposed to do? What else is supposed to happen? So I don't think this ruling is out there, and I also think it's not in any way, shape, or form a destruction of the First Amendment or a negative precedent as it pertains to the First Amendment. And here's how you know I'm honest about that and upfront about that. If they had gotten Alex Jones, if they said Alex Jones is guilty on defamation or libel or slander, I would say, I don't think that's right. I think that case would have been ruled incorrectly if that's how they ruled. Because, and I've seen, and I'm going to get to the YouTube aspect of this in a second, but I've seen all the compilations of everything he's ever said on Sandy Hook. And the fact of the matter is, he called it a conspiracy. He called it a hoax. He was hyperbolic about it. He was over the top about it. He was wrong about all of it. But it is true that it was his listeners who took the next step and tried to find these people's addresses and went after them. And even though he laid the groundwork that they then took it to the next level, it's not enough. It's the same thing as the Bill O'Reilly thing. You couldn't hold him liable, even though he was perhaps in the realm of common sense. He was a big spark that then led to the killing of George Tiller. So Jones could have been the spark that then led to these terrible things happening, but being the spark is not enough in the court of law. It's just not. So if they had ruled guilty on defamation, I'd say it's just a leap, because Jones, his response effectively is like, yeah, I thought it was a hoax, but I didn't want the families to get harassed. It's like, okay, idiot, well then you shouldn't have gone on and on and on about how you think it's a hoax. But that's still a position that in the eyes of the law is totally tenable. Now, I know that's an unpopular opinion. I know a lot of you guys might not like that, but you have to think of this stuff in terms of precedent. What precedent does it set? If I go out here and I'm railing against the rich and I'm saying they need their taxes raised and I'm saying this person's corrupt and that person's corrupt and this person did that, and then one of my followers goes and murders somebody, am I responsible? Well, Kyle, you did the rant that inspired them to then take action. And okay, but I never said murder them, and I don't want anybody to get murdered. It's like when the Republican congressman was killed by a Bernie fan. Was Bernie responsible for that? I think that's a giant stretch, and I think legally you can't hold them accountable and responsible because they're just not. However, in the case of Jones here, they got him on a technicality. And I'm sorry, but I think that technicality is totally legit. Because at the same time, now that there's effectively some sort of penalty for being wildly irresponsible with what he did, there's no hit to the First Amendment. So that's a massive win. That's a massive upside. There was no, creeping authoritarianism precedent and, speech policing precedent. It was, there's justice, and the justice is as a result of a technicality because he refused to follow basic court procedure and orders and process. So, sorry, guys, I think it's reasonable. I don't know why I'm apologizing. I think most of you will agree with me, actually, that it's reasonable that he went down on this. Final point is this. YouTube and virtually every outlet completely and utterly and totally deranged, delusional, and wrong in how they acted every step of the way. So in the process of prepping for this segment, reading all the articles, one of the things I was planning on doing is showing you guys everything Alex Jones said about Sandy Hook. So I went back. I know I'd covered it in the past. I went back to find the video that had the compilation of everything Jones ever said. It's like a 5-minute compilation of everything he's ever said on Sandy Hook on air when he's directly talking about it's a hoax, it's a conspiracy, this or that. Because at one point he was denying, I never said that. Not only did you say it, you said it 1,000,000 times. I couldn't find the video in my YouTube library. Why? It turns out, come to find out, YouTube pulled down that compilation. Even from people like me who were covering it to expose his hypocrisy and how he's a liar. And how he's disgusting and vicious and ruthless and terrible and wrong. Not only that, the people who made the original compilation, Media Matters, It got pulled down from their YouTube channel more than once. And they said the same thing I said. We're doing this to expose it. We're trying to fight for the families here and show how Alex Jones is lying when he tries to say, I didn't say any of that stuff. We know you said it. It's on video. It's right here. So, but they pulled it all down. So here we go. Yet another example of, even though I agree with the ruling of this case, and even though I think from a moral perspective, Jones could have been the spark that led to a lot of these terrible things, YouTube, I would have been totally okay with an open process and a procedure that says, hey man, in this video, you go too far, and it's effectively a direct threat against the families. Maybe it's a stretch to say he did direct threats against the family, but if you want to make an argument for a couple of the things he said, I hear you, man, and I might agree with you. But when they just gave him the internet death penalty, that went way too far. And then also now, you can't even, I couldn't show the compilation of all the things he said that were crazy to break it down and dissect it and explain how it's inaccurate, because somehow now I'm punished as a result of him being insane. So when you start censoring, when you start deplatforming, it ends up affecting your own team and your own people and your ideology and your philosophy and people who are correct and people who are doing the right thing. Because there is no such thing as a little bit of censorship. Again, if you want to say direct threats of violence, doxing, very limited basic things, of course you can't do that stuff. I'm with you, of course, because in the First Amendment, that stuff is still illegal. But outside of that, you got to let it go. Because if you don't, then that slippery slope is the slippery slope in the world. And now I can't show you guys the compilation I want to show you guys because I'll be penalized as a result of it. And by the way, just so you know, it's stuff like that, which is one of the reasons why my channel is effectively deranked in the algorithm, because I always talk about controversial stuff. I always talk about interesting stuff. I always talk about stuff that is at the fringes in what's allowed in polite society. So, I covered Alex Jones way too many times. I covered others way too many times, and they try to hide my channel as a result of it and not show it to new people. And it's because of stuff like this. So video was pulled from my channel and I had no idea. Video pulled from Media Matters channel and I had no idea. Other videos involving him demonetized, deranked, or both. And so I have to suffer as a result of it. In fact, this video I'm probably showing you right now, I don't know if it happens immediately or if it happens over a little bit of time, but it'll probably be deranked as well. Because they just don't want you talking about things that are controversial, even if you take the position that is quote-unquote correct on the controversial stuff. So I don't agree with big tech censorship. I don't agree with big tech deplatforming. I think this is the slippery slope of all time, and we've already seen horrendous negative effects as a result of it. I mean, the president of the United States was banned from, various social media outlets, but the Taliban wasn't. I mean, you honestly cannot square that circle. I don't care who you are. I don't care how anti-Trump you are. So that stuff needs to change. But in terms of the result of this case, if they had said he's guilty of defamation, I don't think that would have been a fair judgment. And I think that precedent would have been terrible and an anti-First Amendment precedent. But in terms of getting him on the technicality, yeah, I mean, he's guilty on the technicality. So you fucked around, Alex, and you found out.